Okay, thank you, Z. Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the bit of the late start, but we're just waiting for everybody to come in. Welcome to the African Women Chartered Accountants second annual career lift off for the year 2020, following from a great successful start. Last year, we said, you know what, let's bring this back because it was by popular demand, and I can tell that it's a little bit more popular this year because we had so many people filling up the registrations for the series, which is tonight, Thursday, next week Tuesday, and next week Thursday as well, with our esteemed guest speakers and people that are going to come and share their insights as well. For those that don't know me or have never met me before, my name is Kamogelo Pooe CA. I am on the AWCA's Professional Development Subcommittee, along with my other team members who will be joining us tonight, some of which you can see and some of which you won't be able to see because they've been assisting us in the background. And I am responsible for running the Professional Development Subcommittee and Portfolio, which deals exclusively with you guys, the trainee accountants, in whatever year it is that you are. That is part of the AWCA's pillars of identifying, and we're in the nurturing space leading up to the lead pillar after qualification as a chartered accountant. So today I'm just going to be opening up for you guys, but I'm joined by my co-host, Bawinile, who will also introduce herself and lead us on to the proceedings of tonight's beginner and the kickoff of tonight's series as well. And I would just like to welcome all of you. And for those of you who are not familiar with the AWCA, what we stand for, there's plenty of information, and I'm sure that you would have already clicked on the link that you've seen on the social medias, on Twitter, on Instagram as well, and especially on LinkedIn and Facebook, where you were actually able to access the link. If not, that you hadn't seen anything beforehand, you can find us on www.awca.co.za for more information on what we are all about. But as the name stands for itself, we're all about African female chartered accountants, but it doesn't mean that we are anti-men. It doesn't mean that no men are allowed. We are open to all, but our promotion is for the upliftment, the development, and the support of African female chartered accountants from their journey, through their studies, through their qualifying exams, through their articles, and through to qualification and management and senior and executive level. So tonight, the target market is you guys, as you are about to embark on another phase of your careers as well. And it's better late than never, and it's better even earlier that we have this very important and crucial discussion around what happens in the next phase. What is it that you should be expecting and looking out for as you are about to enter into a new stage in your career. You are either in your second year or your third year of your articles. You have passed through ITC and you're about to write your final qualifying exams. And on top of that, you've got your senior managers, you've got your managers, you've got your supervisors and partners all wanting working papers. And at the same time, you still need to focus on career development and what are the actual steps that you need to take and think about as you reach this fork in your road concerning the end of articles. So we know that not all of us are in the same circumstances, but in terms of, CICA's framework and the path to qualifying as a chartered accountant, there's a pretty stock standard set and series of events that are supposed to happen. What we found, and there was a demand for last year, hence the launch of our career lift-off, was the insights and knowledge that needed to have been shared amongst trainee accountants who might not necessarily have been sure of what the various avenues are in terms of pursuing a life and a career, either inside or outside of audit. For the majority of us, it would have been that at the stage that we are in our second or our third year of articles, we would have already been reporting to supervisors, managers, senior managers, as well as audit partners. And those are the individuals and the employers that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. But what about what happens outside of the audit firms? And this is more specifically to those who haven't necessarily had exposure to the audit clients that we may have been auditing. So we know that there are various finance functions and other roles that are quite niche and interesting that may be something that qualified chartered accountants or people completing articles would necessarily want to have more insight into, more knowledge into, and want to understand, well, what is the day-to-day role involved? What kind of people are they looking for if I want to be working in one of those niche industries? And that is the aim of what this career lift-off series entails and aims to outline. But firstly, the way that we packaged it in 2020 is to consider that there is a particular fork in the road and there's certain decisions that people want to make in terms of either staying at the audit firms after secondment or leaving the audit firms or continuing into something totally different that could include entrepreneurship. It could even include something as brave as starting another degree altogether. It could also include further studies as well. It could include contributing to the economy of this particular country, or even immigrating totally, which is what some of our colleagues and individuals have done in recent years. And the way that we've broken up the series is to, first of all, understand and appreciate the differences and the merits of staying inside of audit as well as leaving audit after your articles. Thereafter, what happens when you decide to take the next step into actually leaving your current employer, whether that's inside or outside of audit, so it could happen conversely. And what do you need to do to be able to be on a better footing and to prepare yourself for selling yourself and how you present yourself and the things that you need to be aware of. And then lastly, in the last two installments of the series, we will then focus on the niche kind of industries and the not so typical and the interesting things that I think also garnered a lot of demand in our last year's series for the physical event that we had, where we found that there was quite an uptake for that kind of information, and we wished that people would have been able to have spent more time actually asking questions one-on-one. So the purpose of these series is to be able to share that information, share that knowledge, and also enable you guys that are watching online to ask your questions and to be able to interact and to participate. And I think tonight's discussion is going to be very crucial in the sense that there are some merits and there are some different perspectives which we'd all appreciate. It's just that we need to have that solid platform and that time in and amongst our busy days to be able to ask those questions and hear those different perspectives from people that have left the audit firms after articles and those that have made the decision to stay. And the reasons why that they've made those decisions are what we are going to be unpacking tonight. So that's it from my end. Bawinile, I'm going to hand over to you, who will take us through the proceedings for the rest of the events. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. Please stay tuned. We will try and make the session as comfortable and as interactive as possible. And I will also please expect, if there's a level of interaction that we would like to have, and if you've got any questions for our particular guests tonight, please feel free and more than welcome to enter your questions into the chat box, and we will monitor those questions and flag them, and then we will also relay those appropriate questions to our speakers tonight. So thank you, everybody, and please also look out in the group chat functionality that should be popping up on the side of your screens if there are any housekeeping rules from the AWCA's administrative office in terms of the proceedings and the Zoom functionality that we're going to be using tonight. Over to you, Bawinile. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dumi, and thank you so much. There's a bit of an echo. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Dumi, for such a lovely welcome, and I guess letting everyone know what the AWCA stands for. I mean, a lot of the people who are here today probably know the AWCA. I know I started knowing about it when I was in in university, and it's been quite a journey now that I'm in my articles. So basically, I'm a second year audit trainee in KZN at one of the big four firms, and I am in the trenches as most people would say. But the objective of today, as Dumi said, was it's not about what is right or wrong. I think that's what most people kind of come into that decision or the crossroad as when they're thinking about whether should I stay or should I leave. But it's a matter of just seeing, as Dumi saying, just seeing the perspective from our speakers and just getting that information, you know. So it's simple things like what should you be thinking about during articles, because I know when I came into, or when I signed my training contract, it was the bigger picture. I just want to become CASA, and after that I'll just see what happens. Life will just happen to me. But I think today, getting this information, and there was a huge yearning from the KZN region as part of the trainee chapter, which is something we're studying here in KZN, was that really truly speaking, what should we be thinking about as article trainees, in our journey right now? What should we be doing, and what benefits are we looking at to staying or leaving the firm, you know? And it's not necessarily about what is right or wrong. So a couple of my friends who I was obviously wooing and saying, guys, let's sign up for this, was saying, oh no, I'm going to sign up for the next 3 sessions, and I won't sign up for tonight because I already know what the decision is. And you know, that is the perspective that people are like, oh no, I just want to leave. But I think it's very important for us to as part of the house rules today, is to be open-minded, and to just be able to take in the information, and then I guess make a decision thereof, you know, and then in prep, or kind of lay the foundation for the next few series that we are going to have with the AWCA. So without any like further information, thank you so much to our speakers, who our esteemed guests, who decided to join in on this call. We have Talane, Walter Mutswari, as well as Kamogelo Pooe, who have, you know, avail themselves to be in conversation tonight about, you know, whether should I stay or should I leave after articles. So briefly, there isn't a agenda, and as Dumi said, we want to, as the AWCA, we want to make sure that this session is as interactive as possible. So pop into the chat box and please put in your questions if you have any questions that you want to ask our guests, that you want to ask in terms of the AWCA as well. If you want any information, just put in that information, and we can be able to navigate through those, and get our speakers to probably provide an insight on those questions. So without like a lot of talking, I think I would like to start with Walter Mutswari. If you could please unmute yourself, Walter, and just tell us a bit about yourself. What is Walter about? What does Walter do? What is the story with Walter? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Winnie. Can you hear me?
Perfect. You sound great.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the name is Walter Mutswari. Although the surname there is spelled wrong, but that's okay. So the name is Walter Mutswari. I was born and raised in Limpopo. Did my first degree at the University of Venda, but at the time it was not accredited, so I needed to do bridging course at UJ, which I did, and then I did my CTA. Then I joined an audit firm, Big Four 2016, finished articles 2018 December, and then I went to the corporate world in January 2019 until 31 August 2019. Then I returned to audit, and now I'm currently in audit as an audit manager.
Interesting. And what does Walter do in his chill time? What's your favorite chill time?
To be honest, I just like to exercise, watch some soccer, you know, and do some research, entrepreneurial. So something that interests me, reading some articles, what other people challenges are, other people having the same challenges as me, and stuff like this. Because that's the only way you can solve problems. You need to understand the challenges that we're facing and try to come up with solutions.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Walter, for that. I think I want to move on to Talane as well. If you could please unmute yourself, Tau, and briefly tell us what is Tau about, and what is your favorite chill time, etc.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Perfect. Well, my name is Taumang Talane. Brief background. I grew up in a small town called Secunda. I studied at the University of Pretoria, did my undergrad and CTA there. I finished in 2012. I think I did my articles for 3 years. It was it's a very interesting story around how and what I did during my articles. I think I'll get into that a bit later. And started post article experience in 2016. I worked so basically I went the other route. I went into the investment field, and I've worked in listed investments, and I'm currently working in private equity investments right now. And past time experience, I think I've taken up a lot of hobbies over the years, and I've just sort of progressed with each and every one of them. So, and it's all in a build up. I've got an ambition to do an Ironman challenge. So obviously that requires a lot, super fit. You have to run, you have to swim, and you have to cycle. So I've taken up all those as hobbies. I've also taken up golfing as a hobby, and yeah, I think that's my week and weekend in a nutshell.
Nice. Thank you so much, Tao, for that. I think the question of what is your favorite chill time is really triggered by the fact that people think CASA and I guess maybe people who are in the profession are generally boring. They think we just, I guess, like look at numbers all day, but we are very diverse individuals and we have a very dynamic lifestyle. So that's where the questions come from. And then lastly, but not least, we have the beautiful Kamogelo Pooe. Kamu, if you could please unmute yourself and literally tell us about who is Kamu and what is she about and your favorite chill time.
Thank you, Bawinile, and thank you. I also find you very beautiful, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
In terms of myself, well, okay, as Bawinile introduced me, I am Kamogelo. I grew up in Cape Town. I wasn't born here. I was born in Pretoria, but grew up this side. I then went on to study in Cape Town as well, where I did my undergrad and postgrad. And then I moved to the big jungle or the city of gold back to Johannesburg, where I started off my articles. I worked on at a smaller firm, and unfortunately it did liquidate in between my articles, and that's when I moved over to EY, where I completed my articles. So my tenure as a trainee ended last year. So I am a new manager or assistant manager at the firm that I'm at the moment. And in terms of, I assume, okay, the question that you did ask was regarding what I like to do in my spare time. So I've been challenging myself over the years to visit a different country every year. And unfortunately, due to COVID, it hasn't been able to happen. But I love to travel. I love exploring different cultures, just learning about how different people live, I guess, in other countries, because it's not the same, right? What I've discovered now during lockdown is that I actually enjoy cooking, and it's not as bad as I thought it was before. And also, what I try to do as much as possible over my weekends is go hiking with my friends and just try to stay as active as possible. I do slack sometimes, but I really enjoy hiking and being surrounded by the nature and just being in an open environment. So yeah, that's a bit about myself.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Kamu. And yeah, definitely keeping active is the goal. And cooking has been quite a thing for people with lockdown and quarantine and all that vibe. So yeah, definitely interesting to see that you are enjoying the kitchen. But just to start with you, Walter, tonight, in terms of the questions that we would like to know. I mean, you had the pleasure of having the best of both worlds. So you've been in articles, post articles left, and now you're back. What informed the decisions to come back into into audit, and what skills are you learning?
Yeah, so coming back from audit, I think it was not merely the first choice to say I'm gonna go back to audit, but I think I had to decide on what was on the table, and I chose audit. You know, so where I was, the job that I was sold was not what it was. So I felt that I was not enjoying that. My brain was not challenged enough. I felt bored, and something that keeps me moving. So you will see I drink coffee a lot. So that means that I'm always awake. So so I don't want to get bored. I have to keep doing stuff, and my being challenged. So the job was not challenging me enough. I kind of like missed audit as well, because each day I knew that I had a different challenge, and every day is solving issues that you didn't know that you're gonna face. So because of that, I felt, you know what, if I want to challenge myself and more, and if I want to create relationships with people, and being in meeting with the big guys, and reading the minutes of companies and understand what the guys are thinking, I needed audit. So that's why I said I'll end up going to audit, although it was not something that was first choice, but it was the best choice that I could make, given what I want in the long term.
Interesting. I mean, that's a very interesting take, because you did say that it challenges you, and it's an ever-changing day. And I'd attest to that, because there's no normal day with audits. I mean, you have a plan, you come in, and things change, and you have to kind of roll with the program. So it is an exhilarating experience. But I mean, what would be interesting to find out today is that how do you navigate the territory as a manager? And how is it different now? I mean, coming from being a third year, being on the other side, we always call it the other side of the room, you know what I'm saying? From being a third year to now being a manager, managing audits, managing teams. What is different, and how are you navigating through that role now?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I will advise is that we should stop calling it the other side. So I will advise all the trainees here on the call to say, the change starts with you. If you see in a working paper, you're not happy with that working paper, and especially with what, for example, KPMG went through, there's high chance that your view will be heard. People will listen to you. So you're in a position where your say can change things and can change perspective. So I wouldn't want to call it the outside. I would want to be part of the team, because it's an audit. So an audit without a first year cannot happen. Like you're gonna struggle, because there's those small things that you just need a first year. So we're part of one team. So we should all see ourselves as one team, and not the other side. So because then if you decide to stay, you're gonna have a challenge now to change your mentality, because you never saw, you saw two sides, and sides. It's one side with one objective, and that is to get the right audit evidence to sign the opinion. So if you have a good mentality about being one team, then it's one side, and then from there you won't struggle to become a supervisor or a manager and stuff like that, because in your third year, for example, you would have been acting as a manager, so I, as a manager right now, most people, they don't like my managing style, because it feels like I'm not involved, but that's because I allow my third year to be a manager, to run the show, so that they learn a couple of things, how to run things and stuff like that. And that's why I said, challenge them not to be on the other side. I want them to understand that without them, the audit will not move. So for me, I'm just involved there and to them where they are having challenges, where they think, okay, we thought about this, we don't have answers, can you help? You know, so for me, sharing the experience with them so that they understand how to get to some answers that maybe they didn't have. So it's a it's an easy transition for me because I never saw two sides. So that's how I can summarize it.
Oh, that's
all your questions then.
Yeah, definitely. You've definitely given me another perspective or a new way of looking at it in terms of audits. And I think maybe just to touch in on this question in terms of, I mean, you came back into audits and why did you and why do you believe that a career in audits is still relevant today? I mean, there's so much that's happening. There's people who are saying, why do we need auditors? But why do you feel that a career in audits is still relevant even today?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because I have had people being scared that we're going to lose jobs soon and stuff like that with robots and technology. Maybe even need audit, but one thing I've always found is that audit is all about skepticism. You know, not everybody can be an auditor. Like you can be a smart, you can be whatever, but if your professional skepticism is not on par, you will never be an auditor. And or good auditor, you can be an auditor, but not a good one. So a robot can come, but it will never, you know, it can't sense when something is wrong. It will analyze things, come up with outcomes and all those things, but you still need a professional skepticism, you know, in the audit. So I think because a robot cannot replace that, in my view, audit will still be relevant because you need that professional skepticism, because transaction can be made so complex, you know, that, without a human asking probing questions, you will never find the issues that are hidden. And everyone in the market, the users of the financial statements, all they want to know is, are those financial statements reliable? You know, like your biggest users like SARS, you know, they rely so much on our financials. So they will always need us to say, you know, every revenue that should be recorded is recorded, because then they want to charge their tax, you know. So if you look in SA, with our economy struggling right now, the government will want to collect as much tax as they possibly can. So they are relying on us as auditors to help them to collect all the monies that they could collect.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely. I think you touched in on something that is very important, and that's, I think, the SAICA mandate of CA 2025 and what things are possibly going to look like, and what does the future CA need to be like. And I think with the 4AR and those conversations happening, it's definitely something we need to start looking at in terms of, I guess, trainees and young professionals in terms of to upscale ourselves for those roles. If Dawa can if you could just unmute yourself and we could have that conversation that you said about the interesting part about your articles journey. I think you mentioned a bit earlier.
Yeah. So I'm a beneficiary of the Tutuga bursary. So, you know, as with the Tutuga bursary, you never quite have an idea of where you're going to end up. So I think it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because, you know, it leaves it up to, you know, towards the end of your CTA year, where you sort of give an indication of where you'd like to end up, well, due to your interests and such. And, you know, I think during my CTA year, I kind of discovered, or actually before that, but I got an affirmation during my CTA year, and also just by my interaction with each and every different subject that we cover in the CTA year, and I could sort of like get an idea of where my strengths are and interests are. So when I finished CTA, I was allocated to an audit firm, a medium audit firm. And, you know, I told the allocation lady from the day I was allocated, I was like, I don't really want to do it. And not because there's anything wrong with it, but because one, actually auditing was like a struggle, a real struggle for me in CTA. I struggled so badly with auditing. Thank God I made it. And also because I sort of like had an idea of, you know, as Dumi was talking about the fork, I sort of had an idea of which side of the fork I'm sort of leaning towards. So I went in, I did articles, you know, I was allocated to the small firm, and I kept speaking to the allocation lady, and I was like, I really want to move. And eventually, a few months into my articles, I was given the opportunity to move. So I did audit, but when I was moved into an audit space. So I couldn't actually run away from auditing itself, but I could sort of like guide the extent as to how I do it. And then I was moved to funny enough, Walter was speaking about it, and I was listening and smiling to myself. I was moved into SARS, and I was doing tax audits there for the greater part of my articles. And even there, when I got there, I think one thing for me is that I always made my intentions and goals and vision very clear to my training officer. And even during my articles at SARS, I was given an opportunity actually to attain my competencies in the financial management space. I was given an opportunity to do like all of my competencies at the IDC, which further, you know, just opened my eyes and sort of like my interest into what sort of things make me, you know, or what sort of interests I'm aligned to. So that was my sort of like articles journey. I sort of like hopped between three training offices, and it was a good thing that the latter two of them were in a partnership, so I could basically just conclude my articles in that same space. So that's sort of like the high level picture of my articles. What was the other question?
Journey. Your article's journey. No, it was just that I wanted to understand in terms of what your article's journey looked like, and you've explained it perfectly. I just wanted to understand in terms of you spoke a lot about grabbing a couple of opportunities and making your intentions known to your development officers or whoever that was, I guess, mentoring you through your article's journey. But did you have like a clear plan of where you wanted to go post articles? Because I can speak for myself and say, as I said at the beginning, the whole picture for me was just to come in, get the competencies. In fact, I found out about the competencies when I got there, get the hours, and then I guess leave and go somewhere, even though I didn't know where, but I kind of wanted, you know, to do that. But with you, I mean, you spoke about financial management, and you spoke about certain interests that you had during articles. Did you have an idea already of the role that you're doing now, of where you wanted to go after articles?
I kind of did have an idea. I kind of knew what I want to do, but I mean, well, personally for me, it's never as clear as light of day. So just to give everyone assurance that, you know, it's not like I had this grand picture of what I'm going to do and what I'm supposed to do. It's never like that, but you always sort of like have a feeling of where you'd like to pull towards and what sort of things you'd like to do. You know, you don't necessarily know what you want to do, but you know what sort of things you'd like to do. And those are the sort of skills and strengths that you need to harness, because you know, when it's time to move, you come out of the door and there's, for example, if a company is hiring, there's abundance of CAs every beginning of every year. So you know, you need to always try and find something that makes you stand out, something that makes you different from everyone else, and just having a sense of self, a sense of knowledge of who you are, and sort of like what sort of makes you tick. That in itself is a very great strength to come out of your articles with, you know, because I think more than anything, out of articles, you know, it's a training contract, that is called a training contract for a reason. You're not supposed to come out of there an expert, or you know, this master of or whatever. You're just supposed to come out a better person that you were when you went in, meaning you know something better, you know yourself better, especially. I think that's a very important thing to discover during your articles, is who and what would I want to do. Because like I said, if you come out of the gate and you don't necessarily know what, and you know, you don't know what you're working towards, it's very, very clear to pick up. You know, I'll make an example. When I was finishing, also because I knew what I wanted to do, but you know, because you just come out of articles and I'm looking at opportunities, I apply a lot of places, and I was invited to an interview at one of the top investment banks, and the role was a finance manager role. And I got there, I spoke to the hiring manager, we spoke, and you know, at the end of the interview, it was a lady. She actually called me in 2 days' time, and she was like, you know what, I interviewed you, I like you, and one thing I know about you is that if I hire you, you're not going to stay. Which was such a blessing for me, because she actually showed or affirmed me to say, you are actually interested in things like these, so you should align yourself with things like these instead of this, because you're going to frustrate yourself. Also, that's another thing, you don't want to just go anywhere, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to frustrate yourself, and from, you know, when you're just going to find yourself in such confusion, because you'll move from job to job thinking like, this is not it. But then you know, after some time, you'll realize that maybe you just didn't know what you wanted. And that's such a, I think for me, I reiterate again, that's such an important thing to discover during your articles, to say, you know, out of all these possible career fields, which just narrow it down as the years go by, just narrow it down, narrow your interests down, you know, until you left a couple or a few. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to help you progress much quicker in your career beyond that also.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I'm gonna take from this chat. I mean, it's very important, as you said, to know who you are, and to, I guess, drill down into your interests, because that allows you to make an informed decision about, I guess, where you possibly could end up after post articles. I mean, going a few steps back and looking at your articles journey, what could you have done differently or better in terms of your articles experience? Is there anything that you could have done better or differently?
I think when I look back in hindsight, I realize, you know, because you know, everyone, you come in, you're ambitious. Everywhere you go, you wanna change things, or you know, you wanna reinvent the wheel, etc., etc. I think for me, if there's something I could have changed, is to, you know, sometimes it's just, especially like I said, in a training contract, you want to learn as much as you can from what you are doing. You know, you don't necessarily have to be dismissive. You know, like some people would say, you know, I have a lot of friends who went through the full 36 months in an audit firm, and after the 36 months, half of them come out with not a lot, you know, in terms of knowledge, and because they just spent the time being frustrated, complaining about it, you know. So I think the most important thing I do is just to go back and learn, you know, and just take the learning experience, whether you like it or not. It's a learning experience. even the frustrations are actually a part of the greater part of life. Everywhere you go, there'll always be people who will frustrate you in your workplace. There'll always be, you know, people who work at different paces than you are, and obviously that's going to slow you down. There's so many lessons to learn from that, and if you just take them one at a time, it makes you such a better person, a much more complete person.
Definitely, definitely. I think, I mean, you touched on the fact that conflict is something that most people struggle with, you know, and I think that definitely as part of my articles journey, it's something that I've learned, you know, to handle myself better, and to have that self-control, and to also understand, as you said, different people's business chemistry. Some people like to get things done in their own pace, and I guess that's all part of the learning, and I think maybe that's how we should be looking at articles, and not necessarily spending the time complaining or being frustrated about this and that, or the managers, or whatever the case may be. I mean, I went into your LinkedIn and I just looked a bit, and I saw that you've pursued a CFA level 1. What advice would you give someone who's considering studying further? I know people who are doing CFA currently during the articles journey, so what advice would you give someone who's looking at doing maybe an MBA or CFA, and would you recommend to do it during articles, and obviously what informed your decision to pursue this?
You know, so it's always one thing to always ask yourself when you want to do things is, why am I doing it? You know, because you know, a lot of people would want to do something because it puts you ahead in a way, you know. But the more you progress also in the work environment, you realize that you know, you'll always be told that, you know, it's very difficult to ignore a hard worker, or you know, and that's very true. You know, hard workers, you can't ignore hard work in the workspace, but the hard worker can be overlooked, and that's what people also need to learn, is that when you're doing something, you must always ask yourself, why are you doing it? So I'll just bring it back to myself to say, you know, I when you look at the CA designation, especially, it's a large and wide encompassing designation that basically it gives you basics and fundamentals of almost any facet of the commercial space. So when I looked at that myself, you know, I realized that especially in the investment field, what do you need to take it a level up? For example, if someone is going to trust you with money to manage, for example, you will have to, you know, display the adequate experience. You'd have to display the adequate education, which, as it stands already, I believe the CA, like I said, the CA designation is one of the most, you know, complete designation you can possess in the world. Actually, you can take it anywhere. So for me, when I did, when I pursued the CFA designation, it's just for you know, continuous professional development. I looked at myself and I was like, it's time to just, you know, read again. And you know, I did. I have one more level to go on the CFA, and you know, I obviously this year has been a very tough year. So I took the decision to postpone it to next year, but I can also assure you that with the basic knowledge of CTA, you are more than equipped to tackle CFA level 1 and 2. Not with ease. Obviously, you'll have to put in the hours, but I mean, you have the basics, you know, the fundamentals, and you're just going to build on it. And that, I think for me, that the only reason I decided to pursue it was to just say, you know what, let me challenge myself a bit more. Let me prepare myself to basically, like I'm saying, you must always know where and what you want to do. And I'm just in a process where I'm preparing myself to one day be able to be a money manager, if I can call it that. So this will be one of the tools
Yeah.
that I'll need in my arsenal to,
The tools.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's very important. You spoke about tools, and I think came into the realization that the CASA designation is a skill set. It's not to box you into either a financial manager role, or either into an auditor, or either into a deal maker, or any role. It is a skill set, and I think the more we see it as that, and the better our chances of I guess harnessing what we are good at, and I guess propelling ourselves for those roles that we wish to occupy in the future. Thank you so much for that, Tao. Gamu, if you could please unmute yourself. And I know you did mention earlier on that you just completed articles like earlier in last year. So if you could just take us a bit, how was your articles experience? What big learnings did you take from that? Dumi, if you could please assist with unmuting Gamu.
Thank you, Dumi. So I guess in terms of my articles experience, it was sort of a bit different to what Tao has expressed. So when he came in, he obviously knew or sort of had an idea of where he'd like to position himself. I think for me, it was a lot different. I think I went in trying to make sure that I'm learning every step of the way, and I'm just constantly challenged. But I really struggled to identify or sort of position myself in terms of where it is specifically I would like to go post articles. So I think for me, I spent quite a bit of time trying to be the perfect trainee, making sure that I completed my work on time, making sure that everything was of a good quality. But I sort of neglected the fact that in the end, right, I'd have to make like sort of a life altering decision in terms of where it is I'd like to position myself. And if I were to go into any role, how do I market myself and make sure that I can sell myself and get a company to hire me or employ me. So I think that that's where I sort of made a bit of a mistake. And I realized that towards the end of my third year, because obviously everybody's trying to go for interviews, making sure that, they get a job for next year. And I think I had to spend a bit of time trying to establish whether I'd actually learned the skills that I was supposed to learn within my articles. And I sort of discovered that maybe I didn't take advantage of what I should have taken advantage of in terms of the opportunities that were available. So I guess towards the end of my articles, I started having conversations with the associate directors and the partners, just expressing the fact that I sort of didn't feel like I was being challenged. Yes, I was doing the job and obviously trying to make things better than they were the year before, but I felt like there was still something missing. And I didn't want to put myself in a position where I'm going into a job and either I don't enjoy it because it's not challenging, every day is the same, or go into a job where I feel like I don't have the adequate skills. So I think I had to do a bit of research within the firm that I was in to see which other sectors or I guess components or specific areas I'd like to position myself, and sort of work towards working within those specific components. For example, I worked within the retail banking space after I'd moved to EY, but obviously still then I still felt like it wasn't enough. I wasn't getting what I wanted, or this is not where I would have liked to see myself post articles. So I had to do a bit of research internally, speak to other managers, and find out how their experience has been on other areas within the firm. And I guess then that's when I actually discovered that maybe it would be of benefit for me to stay and explore other areas within the banking environment from an audit perspective before I branch on. So I guess for me, it was just from my perspective, I used this opportunity to do a bit more research as opposed to, trying to be the model trainee.
Yeah, I think it's a trap that you spoke about where and I think it's at a different phase. You come in, you are excited about this article's journey, and you are told that, okay, there will be a learning experience, it will be a learning experience, and you're going to be learning every day, but then you get stuck into the trap of you are frustrated as a trainee, you're working hard, and you want to be recognized, etc., etc., etc. So it's definitely a trap that everyone does experience, but it's great to know that you did kind of, kind of introspect towards the end in terms of what you're looking at. I mean, now you are in AM, and one of the questions that we have here in our Q&A section is that Kelly wants to find out, how was the transition from the small firm that was liquidated to a bigger audit firm, and what are some of the key lessons that you learned from this experience?
Okay, so in terms of transitioning from a small firm, obviously it is a bit of a jump culturally, definitely, because I mean, obviously, with a smaller firm, there's easy access to a partner. As a first year, you're not really intimidated to interact with people within a higher position, and then you move off into a bigger firm, and you're told that, perhaps the second and third years should be the ones engaging with the client and with the partner. So you sort of it's sort of slightly different. I think you know what, the transition, because it was obviously out of my control, it, it was like a shock to the system, I guess, because obviously you expect something to go according to a plan, and then it sort of changes along the way. So I guess it really taught me to be agile and just learn to adapt within any environment that I work in. I think it's very important, even when you do go out of audit, that you're constantly changing within the environment that you work in, because things sort of don't go according to plan. Even with your career, you might think that you want to do corporate finance for the first 2 years of your life, and then later discover that it's sort of not where you'd like to be. So I think that's one thing that it has taught me. But it was a jump, but I really do appreciate it. I think there were so many opportunities that also came out of it. And not to say that being at a smaller firm wasn't great. It taught me a lot about being confident and being able to speak to like people of within a higher position, and not being afraid to do so, especially within my first year. So that was the benefit of it. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. And now we're gonna talk about another transition, and I guess you spoke about how it is very important in this profession to always be adaptable and always be agile. I mean, with COVID and everything just like changing, we were all kind of forced into a virtual environment, and again, as auditors, I guess as auditors, and I'll speak for the auditors because I am in that field, but in the moment, or in this current moment, but it forces us to do things differently, to see our roles and what we provide our services in a very different way. So that definitely is I guess an important skill. I think Gamo also asked something here as well. Hi, Gamo. What would you say made you stand out from the rest when you're applying for AM role as a third year, considering that there are many other candidates who have the same experience applying for the same role? I think this is a very important question.
So I guess for me it was twofold, or something that I did do in my articles, and that sort of worked in my favor, was building relationships. So as I expressed, obviously when I came from the smaller audit firm, I wasn't afraid to go to a partner and tell him XYZ, and sort of speaking out sort of made me stand out a bit. So when it came to the interview process, I think it sort of made it a lot easier, because the people who made the final decision sort of had an idea of who you are, and standing out. And I guess people always say that, you just need to work hard. Sometimes working hard doesn't really work. So I don't want to encourage that. Not to say that you shouldn't work hard. Obviously you should, but it should be for personal reasons. But I think building relationships is very important, and just making sure that you have someone within the firm who can vouch for you. And obviously they would do that knowing that you produce good quality work, but just just building relationships. I think that's very
Building
critical.
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think what you've just mentioned, I guess, is crucial because for me, most people speak about networking. I think that is what the biggest advantage of the audit or articles experience, that we are able to, I guess, build networks and be able to network with people that we would have necessarily met if we were in, I guess, a particular role, or even if we got into the job markets just after CTA or just after your first degree. We're able to work with FMs of different people in different industries. So I guess it is a very, very important thing. And I think, to throw this question back to Walter as well, in terms of you went back into the audit space. How did you how did building relationships enable you to be able to find your way back into the firm you were once at, seeing that everyone wants a spot? I mean, Gamo grabbed it as well. So how did that happen for you? Dumi, if you could please unmute Walter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Yeah, I think that's a very important question. And I think Ihamo also touched on it in a good way as well. So I can't emphasize more on relationships, because that's the one that is gonna get you where you want to be. So I'll give you a quick example about myself. The HR partner at the time, when I was a third year, they sent questions to say, doing a survey to say, please indicate if you want to stay or not. And at the time, I was emotional, which is what Tao touched on. And yeah, that's why I was nodding, because I could relate to what emotions does to your career, and you should not allow it to happen. So I was at the time, and I just didn't reply. But then me and her, we had a relationship. She could ask me, hey, you didn't reply to my survey. I said, there's an answer that says I'm not interested in staying. But then later on, I remember I went to her and said, you know what, I changed my mind. I want to stay. And this is literally a day before they could send out contracts, and show my contract was printed. You will to understand that she needed to get more approval as well. But then, because of the relationship and what she knows about me, she made it happen, and contract. Unfortunately, I ended up saying, you know what, I'm not interested. I'm not going to sign it. That's what happened when you're a third year. You don't know what you want, because so many things are happening. You have audit happening. You have interviews that you're trying to attend. It's just other colleagues of yours are going to interviews, and you're wondering, when is my interview? It's like so many things happening at the same time, so you don't really know what you want. So, but then I ended up turning it down. But then what happened is, I remember when I left, one of the partner I worked with he said, one of the client was offering me a contract. He said, don't take it because you're going to be bored. Because he said, he did very well, I'm going to be bored. So I turned down the contract as well. And then that's when I ended up on the other one, where I actually got bored. What happened is, he kept on saying, Walter, I know you might be bored. I have a feeling you're bored. So you are ready, come back. I did not need to worry about what happened if I want a next job. And that's why I say, even though audit was not something I wanted to actually go to, it was something that was open, and I literally didn't even need a CV or anything, because of the relationships. I just got an offer and say, hey, okay, you want to come back? Yes, we're happy to take you back, and you get the job back. So yeah, relationships are very important, and you keep it going and network with people, exchange, take their personal number, take their personal address, because respect everyone, because you just don't know when you're gonna need each other, so don't be emotional too much, because that's what happens in every job. Everybody's gonna make you angry at some point, but you have to keep it going and be professional.
I think thank you so much for that response, and I think Dao touched on something very important, and then you as well, Walter, about emotional intelligence during your articles journey. And for me, I had a very I guess one of the best, probably this is going to be the first webinar, but this is number 2, an emotional intelligence webinar that the KZN region hosted, the AWCA KZN region hosted on emotional intelligence, and such learnings, as you said, making emotional decisions are not good. You have to take a step back and kind of reevaluate, reassess why you're making that decision, and why is it necessary to react in that manner. And I think that is definitely a big takeaway for me in 2020. I think that should be a takeaway for everyone in your articles journey, and I think you, I guess, affirming that for everyone here as well, in terms of how they should look at their articles journey. I mean, post articles, Tao, I'd like you to touch on this topic in terms of how do you believe that the CA of the future should look like? You know what I'm saying? We all 3 of you guys are in different spaces per se. You know, you all are experiencing being a CA, a young CA differently. But how do you believe the CA of the future should look like?
It's a very interesting question. But I just want to say something before I answer it, you know, because now as I'm sitting back and thinking, and I realize that, and also just listening to Walter and Gamo, and it just paints a complete picture to say, even as a trainee, you know, you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out now, or as you leave your articles, or because I was just thinking about it in my experience in some of the companies we invest in. You'll have people who come out of let's say a 15-20 year audit career to go on and be CEOs and CFOs, and so whenever the time is right, that's always the perfect time to move. So because I just feel like maybe I might have made it or sound to seem like you should have it figured out right now.
No.
And yeah, that's not the case. So I just wanted to put that one out there. And then CA of the future. I think the CA of the future is going to look like every one of us on this call, because basically, the more you are out there, the more you represent the brand, the more you are the face of the brand, either in your organization or in whatever position you find yourself in. You're kind of shaping the CA of the future. So for example, recently, or rather right now, there's so many CAs who are CFOs on the JSE, and that's because someone 20, 30 years ago went in and did such a brilliant job at being a CFO or CEO. And it's the very same thing in either in investment management or anywhere else. I mean, you just have to go out. I think personally also, we always need to think of it as I am the CA of the future. So for example, who would you like to model yourself after? And also, how would you like to better that person? And I guess then you go on to become the CA of the future, because we look at, I can think of, the people like, Andy Lekumalo, just to name a few. They're the people who are the face of the brand. And we say a CA of this year, or a modern day CA will look like a Andy Lekumalo or a, I can't think of anyone else right now, but I mean something like that. So exactly, so we should always think of ourselves as the brand ambassadors, and what we do, what we say, how we dress. For example, people will go out and say, CAs are boring people. They say that because they encountered someone along the way and they found that person very thing. If you go out 3 years ago, I was the first CA recruited in the team, and after that, there's been 3 others who came in after me. So it was never the tradition to hire CAs, but I'd like to think the only reason they did that is because I went in and I acclimatized very quickly and got the job done, and then it made the boss think like, hey, okay, maybe CAs are the right people to hire. So I think for all of us, we carry that responsibility to be the face of the CA.
To be the CA of the future.
Yeah, because and also because there's so many. Go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, there's so many. Yes. No, not to cut you short. I mean, you touched
No,
on the fact
I was just saying because there's so many career paths that are open to the CA designation. So there's so much that you can do with this designation. So it's very, very difficult to cut it down. These days you have CAs who are like heavily into IT and into data and into breaking down data, and that is a new segment of the CA designation that's opening up because people went in and laid that foundation. So that's how I think of the CA of the future.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting to as you said, the responsibility and the onus is on us at the end of the day to I guess brand and model what the CA of the future should look like. I mean, we have a question here of someone asking in terms of trainees have a controversial outlook on on the fact that the world owes them. There's a sense of entitlement in terms of SAICA should make this happen for us. SAICA should do this for us. In terms of that, how would you advise us, I guess, as part of the trainee fraternity to leverage off the information that we have already about what the profession allows us to be able to tap into, and also in terms of making connections. You know what I'm saying? You made important connections during your journey, I presume. And how would you advise people to not fade in the background, and kind of hone on your skills, chat the chat basically, post articles?
I think it's part of that journey where you sort of have to know yourself, and when you know what you sort of are interested in and what sort of things make you tick, then you're able to easily express yourself. I think because that's one of also the most important things, for example, that gets you through an interview is you need to be able to go in there and quickly express yourself in a space of an hour to a satisfactory level. So I think you can only do that when you know yourself, and you know yourself so well that you're able to go in there and just lay it down as best as you can possibly do it. So I think what we need to do is as trainees is to be involved, find a way. I'm actually quite impressed that you're here and you're facilitating this event right now. That's also a sign of taking initiative. It's things that you can take with you onto your CV, there's so many other things to do. I mean, we don't only have to just do our articles and get it out. We can read. That's such that's another very strong thing to do, is to just read and just build on your interests and build on your knowledge of your interests. And that will always get you far, because that'll also be a conversation starter. When, for example, when someone's like, tell me about yourself,